Welcome, weary traveler, to a journey into a past where even the smallest inconvenience could shape an entire day. Tonight, we will immerse ourselves in the quiet, demanding world of ancient Rome, not through its grand triumphs or its philosophical debates, but through the singular, mundane challenge faced by one ordinary Roman citizen, the unexpected loss of his sandals. Our focus will be on the meticulous details of his barefoot journey, the textures he encounters, the subtle discomforts, and the pervasive reality of a world without modern footwear. Our story begins before the sun has fully ascended, in the quiet, tranquil hours of a Roman dawn. Imagine the air, cool and still, carrying the faint, earthy scent of damp stone and the distant, subtle aroma of wood smoke from early morning hearths. The stars, countless and silent, still glitter, sharp pinpricks of light, in the fading darkness above the city, each one a tiny, distant jewel in the vast velvet expanse of the pre-dawn sky. The world is held in a profound stillness, a quietude that seems to absorb all sound, undisturbed by the usual clamor of the waking city. This stillness is not merely an absence of noise. It is a profound presence, a blanket of quiet that settles heavily and comfortably over the sleeping city, undisturbed by the hurried, frantic pace of the day to come. There is no urgency here, no pressing demands, only the slow, inevitable progression of time, meticulously measured, not by clocks, but by the gradual paling of the eastern sky. The darkness holds a comforting weight, a tangible presence, a gentle, all-encompassing embrace before the faintest, most hesitant hint of light begins its slow, gradual, almost reluctant return. It is a deep, velvety cloak that promises profound rest, a sanctuary from all demands. The silence is not empty, not a void. Rather, it is vibrantly filled with the subtle, sleeping presence of the stone streets, the unseen creatures of the night, perhaps a stray cat moving silently over the cobblestones, and the vast, indifferent cosmos above, stretching endlessly. It is a silence that utterly invites deep, undisturbed rest, a quietude so rarely found in our bustling contemporary world, a profound, all-encompassing sense of peace that permeates everything, seeping gently into the very stones, the very air we breathe. Imagine the city still slumbering. The grand temples, their marble now cool and dark, rise silently against the paling sky. The bustling forums are empty, their pavements still cold and unworn by the day's footsteps. The narrow, winding streets are deserted, their uneven surfaces waiting for the first light. The air carries the distinct, clean scent of damp stone, of ancient dust, and a hint of the sea, carried on the faint, cool breeze. This is Rome before it awakens, a city of stone and shadow, held in a profound, silent anticipation. Inside a modest Roman home, built of sun-baked brick and timber, its roof of terracotta tiles, the air is cool and still. It carries the faint, lingering scent of wood smoke from last night's dying embers, mixed with the wholesome, earthy aroma of dried herbs hanging from the rafters, a gentle, natural perfume. Our Roman citizen, whose name we might imagine as Lucius, stirs gently, almost imperceptibly, beneath his rough woolen blanket. It is a slight, almost soundless shift in the profound stillness that fills the small room. His breathing is deep, slow, and utterly even, a steady, rhythmic cadence. It is a testament to the profound sleep of honest toil, a deep, restorative rest truly earned through the previous day's efforts. The world outside is just beginning to yield its profound darkness, hinting at the coming light, a subtle, gradual paling of the eastern sky. The darkness within the room is a deep, velvety black, a comforting void, slowly, imperceptibly, gracefully giving way to the softest, most ethereal shades of gray as the first tentative, hesitant light filters through the small, unglazed window openings, perhaps a slender crack around the heavy wooden door, or a single small, high window set into the thick wall. The air in the room remains still, utterly undisturbed by any breeze, holding the gentle warmth of his sleeping body, a small, comforting pocket of warmth in the cool embrace of the early morning. He lies for a moment more, suspended peacefully between the fading world of sleep and the gradual return of wakefulness, his consciousness hovering in that serene space. His senses slowly, deliberately, begin to register the subtle changes in the environment, the gradual, unhurried return of full consciousness, a gentle awakening. The quietude of the house is absolute, a complete sanctuary from the world, however peaceful and simple that world may be, a private, personal space for profound rest and essential renewal. He feels the rough texture of the wool blanket against his skin, a familiar comfort. The firmness of his simple bed, a wooden frame strung with ropes or leather straps, topped with a thin mattress filled with straw or wool, supports his body. The sounds are minimal, the soft rustle of the blanket as he shifts, the quiet hum of his own breath. He is not yet fully awake, but the process has begun, a slow, unhurried transition from the depths of sleep to the gentle stirrings of the day. A faint, almost imperceptible shift in the quality of the light. A very, very distant rooster crows, its call muffled by distance and the still heavy air, so faint it barely registers, like a sound heard fleetingly in a dream. A soft, sleepy call from far, far away, echoing faintly across the quiet, awakening city. Lucius sighs softly, a long, gentle exhalation, a slow, unhurried release of the night's stillness from his lungs, a breath that carries away the last vestiges of slumber. He does not rush to rise. There is no need for haste here, no urgent summons demanding immediate attention. The day will unfold as it always does, at its own measured, unhurried pace, guided by the sun's slow, majestic ascent. His body, inherently accustomed to the ancient rhythms of the sun and the daily routine, begins its slow, gradual awakening, a natural, gentle return to full alertness, a smooth transition from the realm of dreams to the tangible reality of the coming day. There is no jarring alarm, no harsh, sudden sound to abruptly pull him from his deep rest. Instead, there is only the subtle, natural shift in the world around him, a smooth, organic transition from the quiet peace of night to the gentle stirrings of dawn, a seamless progression. His eyelids flutter open, slowly, unhurriedly, revealing the dim, familiar outlines of his simple Spartan room, the well-known shapes of his wooden cot, the dark rectangle of the hearth, the shadowy bundles of hanging herbs. The quiet, rhythmic hum of his own breath fills the profound silence, a comforting, steady sound, a soft reminder of his own presence, his own quiet life unfolding. He feels the lingering warmth of sleep, a soft, ethereal cloud around him, slowly dissipating, melting away, as full consciousness gradually returns, leaving him feeling clear, calm, and gently prepared for the day. He slowly pushes back the heavy woolen blanket, feeling the cool morning air, fresh and clean, wash over his exposed skin, a gentle, invigorating touch that makes him shiver slightly, but pleasantly. The rough texture of the wool, a familiar comfort, is a tangible physical connection to his simple existence. He sits up slowly, deliberately, on the edge of his simple wooden cot, its frame creaking softly, a gentle protest against the movement, a small organic sound in the quiet room. His bare feet, accustomed to the feel of his sandals, now seek the familiar smooth, cool surface of the packed earth floor. The floor is solid and grounding beneath him, a firm connection to the very ground upon which his home stands. He stretches, a long, slow, deliberate movement, his arms reaching upwards, his back arching gently, feeling the pleasant, familiar release in his muscles, a quiet unwinding of his body after hours of restorative rest. This stretching is a preparation, a quiet priming of his form for the day's upcoming demands, the familiar work to come. Each movement is unhurried, flowing, a quiet, mindful acknowledgement of the day beginning, a slow, gentle, and intentional start. The rough texture of the blanket against his skin as he pushed it back, the cool, firm earth beneath his feet, these are the simple, elemental, grounding sensations of his morning, anchoring him firmly to his humble home, deeply connecting him to the physical world around him, to the very foundation of his existence. He takes a long, slow breath, filling his lungs with the cool, clean air. He sits for a few more moments on the edge of his cot, perfectly still, allowing his senses to fully awaken. He notices the faint patterns of light on the far wall, shifting almost imperceptibly as the dawn progresses. He listens to the quiet hum of the stillness, a symphony of natural sounds, yet unheard in the city's waking hours. The scent of lingering wood smoke and dried herbs is stronger now, familiar and comforting, a scent of home. His mind, now clear, begins to contemplate the day's tasks, but without urgency, simply a gentle recognition of what lies ahead. This quiet contemplation is a ritual in itself, a mental preparation as vital as the physical awakening. Now, as is his habit, a familiar automatic gesture, Lucius extends his hand towards the floor beside his cot. This is the customary place where he always leaves his sandals at night. He expects to feel the familiar cool, smooth leather straps, the firm, flat sole, the slight weight of his everyday footwear. His fingers stretch out, anticipating the contact, the familiar texture. He imagines the feel of the leather against his palm, the slight give of the straps, the solid base of the sole. His mind has already pictured the simple act of slipping his feet into them, the familiar comfort of their embrace, the protection they offer from the rough surfaces of the Roman streets. This is a small, unconscious ritual, a part of his daily awakening, a transition from the bareness of sleep to the readiness for the day. His fingers reach the spot. They hover for a moment, then gently sweep across the packed earth floor. The expectation is clear, the movement precise. He expects to encounter the familiar objects, to feel their presence. The cool, firm earth is there, just as expected, but something is missing. The expected contact does not occur. The space where his sandals should be is empty. His fingers brush against nothing but the smooth, cool dirt. The silence of the room seems to deepen around this small, unexpected void. His fingers sweep across the packed earth floor again, a little more deliberately this time, a slight frown beginning to form on his brow. The space where his sandals should be is undeniably, unequivocally empty. There is nothing there but the cool, firm dirt beneath his searching fingertips. The expected cool, smooth leather, the familiar outline of the sole, they are simply not present. A subtle ripple of confusion, a faint, unexpected tremor passes through Lucius. This is not how the morning usually begins. His sandals are always, without fail, in this exact spot. His mind, still gently emerging from the depths of sleep, struggles to reconcile this unexpected absence with the deeply ingrained habit of finding them there. He tries to recall if he moved them last night, if he placed them somewhere else, but no such memory comes to mind. The last thing he remembers is slipping them off and leaving them in their usual place. He opens his eyes fully now and looks down at the empty patch of floor beside his cot. The dim light of dawn, filtering through the small window, barely illuminates the spot, but it is enough to confirm the visual emptiness. The space is indeed bare. His sandals are gone. The initial confusion slowly gives way to a quiet, understated sense of mild irritation. This is not a dramatic event, no great tragedy, but a small, unexpected disruption to the smooth, predictable flow of his day. It is an inconvenience, a minor problem that now demands attention, a deviation from the established routine. The comfortable rhythm of his morning has been subtly, unexpectedly broken. He sighs softly, a gentle exhalation that acknowledges the small, unlooked-for challenge. His feet, still bare, feel the cool, rough texture of the packed earth floor beneath them, a sensation that is now more noticeable, more present, without the anticipated comfort of his sandals. The quiet of the room seems to amplify this small, unexpected problem, making the absence of his footwear feel more significant than it logically should. The day has begun with an unexpected, mundane mystery. With the undeniable realization that his sandals are indeed missing from their usual spot, Lucius begins a quiet, methodical search within the small confines of his room. This is not a frantic, hurried search, but a slow, deliberate process, driven by the hope that they have simply been misplaced, perhaps kicked under something in the dimness of the night. He pushes himself fully off the cot, his bare feet now firmly on the cool, packed earth floor. The sensation is immediate. The subtle grit of the dirt, the coolness that seeps into the soles of his feet. He moves slowly, his gaze sweeping across the floor, then upwards to the low shelves, and the few simple pieces of furniture that furnish his humble dwelling. First, he kneels beside his cot, bending low. He reaches his hand under the wooden frame, feeling along the cool, dusty earth beneath. His fingers brush against the rough texture of the wooden legs, the smooth, cool surface of the floor. He feels for any object, any familiar shape that might be his missing sandals. The silence is broken only by the soft rustle of his tunic as he moves, and the gentle scrape of his fingers against the dirt. He withdraws his hand, empty. Next, he moves to the small, sturdy wooden chest that serves as a storage place for his few possessions. He kneels before it, running his hands along its sides, feeling the rough grain of the wood. He peers into the shadowy space beneath it, hoping they might have slid there. His eyes strain in the dim light, trying to discern any dark shapes. He reaches his arm into the narrow gap, feeling the cool, dusty air, the smooth, unyielding surface of the floor. Again, nothing. He then turns his attention to the small, simple wooden table in the corner where he eats his meals. He walks slowly towards it, his bare feet making soft, almost imperceptible thuds on the earth floor. He looks under the table, his gaze sweeping across the space, then reaches his hand underneath, feeling along the cool, dusty floor. The silence is profound, broken only by his own soft breathing. The search continues, methodical and unhurried, yet yielding no results. The absence of the sandals becomes more pronounced with each empty space he checks. As Lucius continues his quiet, fruitless search within the room, the sensation of the cold, hard floor beneath his bare feet becomes increasingly pronounced. It is no longer just a momentary coolness, but a persistent, undeniable presence that begins to seep into the soles of his feet, slowly spreading upwards. Imagine the texture of the packed earth floor. It is not smooth and even like polished stone, but slightly uneven with tiny irregularities, perhaps a few small, almost imperceptible pebbles embedded in the surface, or minute variations in the packed dirt. Each step brings a subtle, distinct pressure against the sole of his foot, a direct contact with the unyielding ground. The coolness of the earth is constant, a pervasive chill that radiates upwards. He moves from one corner of the room to another, his bare feet making soft, rhythmic thuds on the unyielding surface. The sounds are muffled, absorbed by the earth, but he can feel the subtle vibration of each step through the soles of his feet. The air in the room, though warmed slightly by the rekindled hearth, is still cool near the floor, and this coolness is readily absorbed by his exposed skin. The sensation is not one of sharp pain, but of a persistent, low-level discomfort. A subtle ache begins to form in the balls of his feet, a slight stiffness in his toes. The skin on his soles, usually protected by leather, is now directly exposed to the rough, cool texture, feeling every slight irregularity. He can feel the fine dust clinging to his skin, a subtle, gritty presence. This constant, direct contact with the cold, hard floor is a stark reminder of the missing sandals. Their absence is no longer just a mental problem, but a continuous physical reality. Every step, every shift of weight, brings the same unyielding sensation, the same subtle chill. The quiet of the room seems to amplify this physical awareness, making the feeling of the cold, Hard earth beneath his feet, a central, undeniable part of his morning experience. The search continues, but the physical reality of his unshod state is now undeniably present. With his search inside the room yielding no results, Lucius slowly, reluctantly, makes his way towards the heavy wooden door that leads to the small inner courtyard of his home. The light filtering through the doorway is now brighter, indicating that dawn has fully broken, though the sun itself may still be low. He pushes the door open, its hinges creaking softly, a familiar sound. He steps across the threshold, his bare feet now leaving the packed earth of his room for the slightly different, yet equally unyielding surface of the courtyard. The sensation is immediate and distinct. The courtyard floor is likely paved with rough, uneven stones, or perhaps a mixture of packed earth and scattered pebbles. Imagine the varied textures underfoot. The cool, smooth surface of some stones, the sharp, irregular edges of others. The subtle grit of dust and fine dirt clinging to the surface, immediately adhering to the soles of his feet. Each step brings a new, distinct pressure, a slight discomfort as his unprotected soles encounter the varied terrain. The air in the courtyard is cooler than inside the house, still holding the crisp chill of the early morning. This coolness is readily absorbed by his bare feet, a more intense sensation than the indoor floor. He can feel the subtle dampness of any lingering dew on the stones, a cold, wet touch that makes him shiver slightly. He walks slowly, deliberately, across the small courtyard, his gaze sweeping across the ground, hoping to spot his missing sandals. His bare feet make soft, rhythmic thuds on the stone or packed earth, a sound that feels more exposed, more vulnerable than the muffled thuds inside. The sounds of the awakening city are still distant, a faint hum, but the immediate environment of the courtyard is quiet, broken only by his own movements. He checks along the walls, under a small wooden bench near the water basin. His hands sweep across the ground, feeling the rough texture of the stones, the fine dust. The search continues, now in a slightly larger, more exposed space. The discomfort of his bare feet on the cool, rough surface is a constant, subtle reminder of his predicament, a persistent, low-level irritation that accompanies every step. The morning light, though brighter, seems to highlight the emptiness of the space where his sandals should be. As Lucius continues his search in the courtyard, and then perhaps ventures just beyond his immediate doorway into the quiet alley, the morning chill on his bare feet becomes a pervasive, undeniable sensation. The sun is still low, its warmth not yet strong enough to penetrate the lingering cold of the night, especially on the shaded surfaces. Imagine the intense coolness of the stone or packed earth. It is not merely cool, but truly cold, a chill that seems to radiate upwards, seeping into the very bones of his feet. The sensation is sharp, almost stinging at first, then settles into a persistent, deep coldness that makes his toes feel stiff and slightly numb. The skin on his soles, usually protected by layers of leather, is now directly exposed to this biting chill, feeling every nuance of the cold, hard surface. He walks slowly, deliberately, his steps careful, as if testing the ground. Each step brings a fresh wave of cold, a direct contact with the frigid surface. The sounds of his bare feet on the stone or dirt are soft, rhythmic thuds, perhaps a faint scrape as he shuffles slightly. These sounds, usually muffled by sandals, are now more distinct, more immediate. The air itself is crisp and cold, carrying the damp scent of dew and ancient stone. This cold air wraps around his ankles, a subtle, chilling embrace that reinforces the exposed feeling of his feet. He might shiver slightly, a small, involuntary reaction to the pervasive chill. He can feel the subtle dampness of any lingering moisture on the ground, a cold, wet touch that makes the chill even more pronounced. The search continues, but the physical discomfort is now a constant, undeniable companion. His mind is focused on finding the sandals, but his body is acutely aware of the cold, hard surfaces beneath him. The absence of the familiar warmth and protection of his footwear is no longer just a problem. It is a continuous physical reality that dictates his every step. The quiet of the early morning city seems to amplify this physical awareness, making the feeling of the morning chill on his bare feet a central, undeniable part of his experience. The search feels longer, more arduous, because of this persistent discomfort. With the immediate vicinity of his home yielding no trace of his missing sandals, Lucius's search slowly, reluctantly, begins to expand. The initial confusion and mild irritation now mingle with a growing sense of quiet determination. He cannot simply proceed with his day without his footwear. It is a fundamental necessity for navigating the Roman streets. He steps out of the quiet alley directly adjacent to his home and into a slightly wider, still mostly deserted, side street. The surfaces here are still rough, uneven cobblestones, sometimes interspersed with packed earth. Imagine the varied textures underfoot, the smooth, worn tops of some stones, the sharp, irregular edges of others, the subtle grit of dust. Each step brings a new, distinct pressure against the sole of his foot, a slight discomfort that is now familiar, but no less persistent. He walks slowly, his gaze sweeping across the ground, meticulously examining every shadow, every corner, every small indentation in the pavement. He looks under any projecting eaves, behind any large amphorae left outside homes, into any small recesses in the walls. His eyes strain in the still diffused light of early morning, hoping to spot a familiar dark shape. His bare feet make soft, rhythmic thuds on the stone, a sound that seems to echo slightly in the quiet street. The air is still cool, and the morning chill on his bare feet remains a constant, undeniable sensation. He can feel the subtle dampness of any lingering dew on the stones, a cold, wet touch that makes the chill even more pronounced. He might occasionally shift his weight, trying to alleviate the discomfort, but it is a pervasive presence. The sounds of the city are still distant, a faint, rising hum, but the immediate environment of the side street is quiet, broken only by his own movements and the very occasional, distant sound of a cart beginning its day, or a voice calling out from far away. The search continues, methodical and unhurried, yet yielding no results. The absence of the sandals becomes more pronounced with each empty space he checks, each new stretch of cold, rough pavement his bare feet must endure. The problem, though mundane, feels larger now, encompassing more of his immediate world, forcing him to confront the reality of his unshod state. As the sun climbs higher, casting more direct, if still pale, light into the narrow streets, Lucius faces a quiet, internal dilemma. His sandals are nowhere to be found within the immediate vicinity of his home. The search has been thorough, if fruitless. The day, however, must proceed. He has tasks to attend to, necessities to acquire, perhaps work to perform. He cannot simply remain in his alley, waiting for his footwear to magically reappear. The decision to venture out into the wider city barefoot is made with a quiet reluctance. It is not a dramatic moment, but a pragmatic one. The discomfort of walking unshod on the rough Roman streets is already evident, and he knows it will only increase as the day progresses and the surfaces become warmer or dirtier or more crowded. Yet the alternative, remaining idle, unable to fulfill his daily duties, is unacceptable. He takes a deep, slow breath, a subtle sigh of resignation. His bare feet are now accustomed to the cool, gritty feel of the stone and earth, but the knowledge of the longer journey ahead, the varied and often harsh textures of the city's pavements, weighs subtly on him. He anticipates the sharp edges of cobblestones, the inevitable dust and grime, the potential for stray debris. He straightens his tunic, adjusting his rope belt, a small gesture of readiness. He steps out from the quiet side street, turning towards the direction of the forum or the market where his morning tasks lie. His pace is deliberate, perhaps a little slower than usual, as he must now pay constant attention to where he places his feet, avoiding sharp stones or uneven cracks. The sounds of the city are beginning to awaken more fully now. The distant rumble of carts is clearer, the murmur of voices more distinct, the occasional clang of a blacksmith's hammer echoing from afar. These sounds, usually heard from the comfort of his sandals, now seem to press in on his exposed feet, making him feel a little more vulnerable, a little more aware of his unshod state in the bustling environment. The decision is made, the journey begins, and with it, the quiet, persistent reality of walking barefoot through ancient Rome. Lucius now walks along a main thoroughfare, a typical Roman street paved with cobblestones. This is not a smooth, even surface, but a challenging, varied terrain for bare feet. Imagine the texture of these stones: large, irregular, dark gray, or brown, worn smooth in some places by countless footsteps, but rough and jagged in others. Each step he takes is a deliberate negotiation. He must place his foot carefully, seeking out the flatter, smoother surfaces of the stones, avoiding the sharp, raised edges or the deep gaps between them. The soles of his feet, usually protected by the sturdy leather of his sandals, now feel every single nuance of the pavement. Imagine the sensation: the cool, hard press of stone against his arch, the subtle prickle of tiny pebbles embedded in the mortar between the stones, the occasional sharp, surprising jab from a particularly pointed edge. The balls of his feet and his heels absorb the constant impact, a dull, repetitive pressure that slowly begins to accumulate into a persistent ache. The sounds of his bare feet on the cobblestones are distinct: a soft, rhythmic thud-thud-thud, a quiet slap as his sole meets the stone, perhaps a faint scrape if he shuffles slightly. These sounds are different from the muffled clop-clop of sandals, more immediate, more vulnerable. He can hear the subtle variations in the sound as his foot lands on a smoother or rougher stone. The air carries the scent of dust, of distant cooking fires, of human activity. The sun, now higher, begins to warm the stones, and he can feel the subtle shift in temperature beneath his feet. Patches of cool shadow, then areas of growing warmth where the sun has directly struck the stone. This warmth, however, can quickly become an uncomfortable heat as the day progresses. He walks slowly, his gaze often directed downwards, not out of shame, but out of necessity, constantly scanning the ground for the safest path. The other citizens, shod in their sandals or boots, move past him, their footsteps louder, more confident. He is acutely aware of his difference, of his exposed state. The cobblestone path, a common feature of Roman life, has become a relentless, unyielding challenge for his unshod feet, a continuous, subtle source of discomfort that accompanies every single step of his journey. As Lucius continues his barefoot journey through the Roman streets, the issue of dust and grime becomes increasingly apparent, a pervasive, unpleasant reality. The city's thoroughfares are not clean, swept surfaces. They are a constant accumulation of fine particles, organic matter, and various forms of refuse. Imagine the texture of the dust. It is fine, dry, and powdery, kicked up by countless footsteps, by the wheels of carts, and by the occasional breeze. It settles everywhere, on the rough cobblestones, in the cracks between them, and inevitably on the soles of Lucius's bare feet. Each step raises a small, almost invisible puff of this fine dust, which then settles back down, clinging to his skin. The sensation is one of constant, subtle grittiness. His feet, once clean from his morning washing, quickly become coated in a fine gray-brown layer. He can feel the individual particles adhering to his skin, a dry, abrasive presence that subtly irritates. The dust works its way into the tiny crevices of his soles, between his toes, making his skin feel rough and dry. Mingling with the dust is a variety of grime. Imagine the subtle stickiness of spilled liquids, perhaps water or wine or something less pleasant that has dried on the pavement, leaving a faint residue. The occasional squish of damp earth or mud in shaded areas, or where water has been spilled, leaving a cold, slimy sensation between his toes. The faint, unpleasant smell of animal droppings, of discarded food scraps, of general urban detritus, all contributing to the overall unpleasantness of the ground beneath him. The sounds are subtle. The soft scuff of his bare feet on the dusty stone, a faint whisper as the dust is disturbed. He can feel the texture of small, dry leaves, or tiny bits of straw, or even minute pieces of dried dung adhering to his soles, and being worn away with subsequent steps, only to be replaced by new grime. This constant accumulation of dust and grime is a continuous low-level irritation. It is not a sharp pain, but a pervasive, unpleasant sensation that reminds him of his exposed state. His feet, usually clean and protected, are now visibly dirty, a stark contrast to the shod feet of those around him. The dirt works its way into the tiny cracks in his skin, making them feel raw. The Roman street, usually just a path to be traversed, has become a source of constant, subtle contamination for his bare feet, a persistent reminder of his missing sandals and the unglamorous realities of ancient urban life. As the morning progresses, the Roman streets begin to fill with the growing morning crowds. This introduces a new layer of challenge and discomfort for Lucius, who is walking barefoot. The quiet solitude of dawn has given way to the bustling, often chaotic, movement of the city's inhabitants. Imagine the sheer density of people. Citizens in their tunics and togas, slaves carrying burdens, merchants hurrying to their stalls, children darting through the throngs. The sounds are a rising cacophony, the murmur of countless voices, the rhythmic clop-clop-clop of sandals and boots on the cobblestones, the distant rumble of carts, the occasional shouts of vendors. All these sounds now seem to press in on Lucius, making him feel more exposed. His primary concern now is not just the rough ground, but avoiding being stepped on. Imagine the constant vigilance required, his eyes scanning not just the ground, but the feet of those around him. He must anticipate movements, quickly shifting his weight, subtly altering his path to avoid the heavy tread of a sandal or the sharp edge of a boot. The fear of a painful stomp on his unprotected toes is a persistent, underlying anxiety. He feels the proximity of other bodies, the brush of coarse fabric against his tunic, the occasional jostle, the warmth of other people's presence. The air is thick with the mingled scents of human bodies, of sweat, of various perfumes and cooking aromas, all blending into the unique smell of a crowded Roman street. His movements become more cautious, more deliberate. He cannot stride confidently. Instead, he shuffles slightly, taking smaller steps, constantly adjusting his position. He might hug the side of the street, seeking the less trafficked edges, even if they are rougher or dirtier. The sounds of the crowd are overwhelming, a continuous roar that makes it difficult to hear individual footsteps, increasing the sense of vulnerability. The discomfort of his bare feet on the rough, dusty, sometimes damp pavement is compounded by the constant need for evasive action. Every near miss, every hurried sidestep adds to his mental and physical strain. The feeling of vulnerability, of being unprotected in this bustling environment, is a new, subtle layer of unpleasantness. Navigating the morning crowds, unshod, transforms a routine commute into a continuous, low-level ordeal, a constant reminder of his missing sandals and his exposed state in the vibrant, indifferent city. Walking barefoot through the awakening Roman city profoundly alters Lucius's auditory experience. The sounds, usually filtered or absorbed by the soles of his sandals, now reach his ears with a new immediacy, a different resonance, creating a unique, subtle symphony of the city. Imagine the rhythmic, almost hypnotic thud-thud of his own bare feet on the cobblestones. It is a softer, more direct sound than the clop-clop of sandals, a less cushioned impact. He can hear the subtle variations in the sound as his foot lands on a smoother, worn stone, producing a softer slap, or on a rougher, more jagged surface, resulting in a slightly sharper tap. The faint scrape of his sole as he shuffles or adjusts his step is now clearly audible. These sounds are deeply personal, marking his every movement. Around him, the dominant sound is the cacophony of other footsteps. The rhythmic clop 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 of leather sandals on stone, a dry, consistent sound. The heavier, more resonant thump-thump of thick-soled boots worn by soldiers or laborers. The lighter, quicker patter-patter of children's small sandals. All these sounds create a complex, overlapping rhythm that fills the air, a constant reminder of the shod world around him. He can distinguish the different types of footwear by their sound, a subtle auditory landscape. Beyond the footsteps, the city's awakening brings other sounds. The distant rumble of carts on the main thoroughfares, a low, continuous drone that vibrates faintly through the ground and up into his bare feet. The occasional clang of a blacksmith's hammer echoing from a nearby workshop, a sharp, metallic ring that reverberates in the cool morning air. The murmur of countless human voices, rising and falling, a continuous, unintelligible hum of conversation, punctuated by sharper shouts of vendors calling out their wares. The air itself carries sounds differently. The faint rustle of tunics as people brush past him, the soft swish of a broom on a nearby doorstep, the distant, almost musical tinkle of a bell from a passing street vendor. All these sounds, usually part of a background hum, now seem to have a sharper clarity, a more immediate presence, because his own physical connection to the ground is so direct. The combination of the physical sensations, the cold, the grit, the occasional jab, and the heightened auditory awareness creates a unique, almost overwhelming sensory experience. The sounds of the city, usually just heard, are now also felt through the solace of his feet, vibrations traveling up his legs. This constant, rich auditory landscape, combined with the physical discomfort, ensures that Lucius is acutely aware of every moment of his barefoot journey through the bustling, waking city. Lucius eventually reaches the Forum, the heart of Romang public life. Here, the pavement is often grander, more meticulously laid, but no less challenging for bare feet. Imagine the vast, open space, surrounded by imposing temples and public buildings, their marble columns rising majestically. The air is filled with a louder, more concentrated hum of activity, the amplified murmur of crowds, the echoes of voices, the sounds of official business. The Forum's pavement is typically made of large, flat, precisely cut stone slabs, often marble or travertine. While smoother than the rough cobblestones of side streets, these large slabs present their own distinct sensations for bare feet. Imagine the cool, unyielding surface of the stone, its polished smoothness offering little grip, especially if damp. The feeling of his entire soul making full, direct contact with the vast, flat expanse of the cold stone. He walks slowly, his steps careful, adapting to this new texture. The sound of his bare feet on these grand slabs is different. A softer, more resonant slap, 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 perhaps a faint slide if his feet are dry. The echo of his own footsteps, usually lost in the city's din, seems more pronounced in the open space of the Forum. The sun, now higher in the sky, beats down directly on the open Forum. He can feel the rapid shift in temperature beneath his feet, the cool, shaded areas near the buildings, then the intense, radiating heat of the sun-baked stone in the center. The marble, though beautiful, can become uncomfortably hot under the midday sun, a burning sensation that forces him to walk more quickly or seek out shaded patches, a subtle dance to avoid discomfort. The crowds here are denser, more purposeful. He must navigate around groups of citizens engaged in discussion, around merchants setting up their stalls, around officials moving with authority. The constant vigilance against being stepped on continues, amplified by the formal nature of the space, where people might be less inclined to watch their step. The sounds of countless sandals and boots on the grand pavement create a continuous, rhythmic CLOP-CLOP, a powerful background hum that emphasizes his own unshod state. The forum, a symbol of Roman glory, becomes for Lucius a vast, unyielding surface that constantly reminds him of his missing sandals. The smooth, cold, or intensely hot stone, the constant threat of accidental injury, the feeling of vulnerability amidst the busy throngs, all contribute to a persistent, low-level discomfort that underscores every moment of his presence in this central hub of Roman life. As Lucius continues his barefoot journey through the city, particularly as the day progresses towards midday, the heat of the ground becomes a dominant and increasingly uncomfortable sensation. The sun, now high and directly overhead, beats down relentlessly on the stone pavements, absorbing and radiating immense heat. Imagine the sensation of the sun-baked stone beneath his bare soles. It is no longer merely warm, but intensely hot, a burning sensation that quickly becomes painful. The dark cobblestones, absorbing more heat, are particularly scorching, forcing him to lift his feet quickly, almost dancing from one spot to another. The lighter marble of the forum might be slightly less intense, but still radiates a significant, uncomfortable warmth. He finds himself instinctively seeking out patches of shadow, however small or fleeting. The cool relief of a shaded doorway, the narrow strip of coolness beside a building, the brief respite under a passing awning. Each step into a shaded area brings a momentary, profound comfort, only to be immediately followed by the return of the burning heat as he steps back into the sun. This creates a subtle, continuous rhythm of seeking and enduring. The sounds of his bare feet on the hot ground are different now. A quicker, lighter patter-patter as he tries to minimize contact time. He might shuffle slightly, or take shorter, faster steps, trying to move across the scorching surfaces as quickly as possible. The air, though warm, feels less oppressive than the heat radiating directly from the ground. The soles of his feet begin to feel tender, perhaps even slightly raw from the prolonged exposure to heat and rough textures. The skin might feel dry and stretched, or conversely, slightly sweaty from the heat, making the grit of the dust adhere even more stubbornly. The smell of hot stone, a dry mineral scent, permeates the air. This pervasive heat from the ground is a constant nagging discomfort, a relentless reminder of his missing sandals. The protection they would have offered from this burning surface is now acutely felt in their absence. What would normally be a simple walk has become an exercise in endurance, a continuous negotiation with the unyielding, superheated surfaces of the Roman city. The midday heat on his bare feet is a physical manifestation of his predicament, a persistent, unglamorous challenge that defines this part of his day. Lucius eventually reaches the bustling market, a vibrant, chaotic hub of activity, but also a place of considerable mess and grime, particularly challenging for bare feet. Imagine the cacophony of sounds, the shouts of vendors, the haggling of buyers, the bleating of animals, the clatter of pottery, all blending into a loud, continuous roar. The air is thick with a multitude of smells, fresh produce, spices, roasting meat, but also the pervasive, less pleasant aromas of refuse and damp earth. The ground of the market is a mosaic of different textures and substances. It is often unpaved or poorly paved, a mixture of packed earth, loose gravel, and uneven stones. But more significantly, it is perpetually covered in the detritus of commerce and daily life. Imagine the feeling of mud underfoot. Where water has been spilled, or where the ground is naturally damp, there are patches of soft, squishy mud. His bare feet sink slightly, feeling the cool, slimy sensation between his toes, the mud clinging to his soles, making them feel heavy and dirty. The sounds are soft squishes and slurps. Mingling with the mud and dust are various forms of organic refuse. Imagine stepping on discarded fruit peels, their surfaces slick and yielding. The soft, mushy texture of bruised vegetables, the occasional crunch of a dropped seed or a small bone. The sticky sensation of spilled wine or olive oil, adhering to his soles. The faint, unpleasant smell of decay, of stale food, of general market waste is constant. He must navigate around puddles of stagnant water, around piles of discarded leaves or straw, around the occasional heap of animal droppings. The constant vigilance required is immense, not just to avoid being stepped on by other shoppers, but to avoid stepping into something truly unpleasant. His eyes are constantly scanning the ground, seeking out the cleanest, least offensive path, a continuous, subtle dance of avoidance. His feet, already dusty and tender from the morning's walk, now become visibly soiled, coated in a mixture of mud, grime, and various sticky residues. The sensation is one of pervasive stickiness, grittiness, and dampness. The unpleasant smells rise directly from the ground, assaulting his senses. The market, a place of vital exchange, has become a source of profound, unglamorous discomfort for his unshod feet, a constant, unavoidable reminder of his missing sandals and the raw, unfiltered realities of ancient urban life. The sounds of the market, though lively, are now accompanied by the subtle, unpleasant sensations underfoot. After navigating the chaotic market, Lucius might find himself needing to visit a temple, perhaps to offer a small prayer, or simply to pass through a more formal, elevated part of the city. The approach to a temple often involves a series of grand stone steps, presenting yet another distinct sensation for his bare feet. Imagine the immense, solid blocks of stone that form these steps, often marble or a finely cut travertine. Their surfaces are smooth, polished by countless centuries of footsteps, but also cool and unyielding. The air here might feel slightly cleaner, more serene, carrying the faint scent of incense or the cool, mineral smell of ancient stone. As Lucius begins to ascend the steps, he feels the cool, hard press of the stone against the entire sole of his foot with each rise. The smoothness of the polished surface offers little friction, and he must be careful not to slip, especially if there is any dampness from dew or recent rain. The sensation is one of uniform, unyielding coolness, a stark contrast to the varied textures of the street. The height of each step requires a deliberate lift of his foot, a slight stretch of his ankle. The repetitive motion of ascending, step after step, creates a subtle strain in his calves and thighs. The sounds of his bare feet on these grand steps are different. A soft, almost reverent slap, 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 perhaps a faint echo in the quiet open space around the temple. These sounds are more pronounced, more exposed, than they would be with sandals. He can feel the subtle temperature variations on the stone, the cool, shaded areas of the lower steps, then the growing warmth as he ascends into the direct sunlight, the stone absorbing and radiating heat. The dust and grime from the streets cling to his feet, making the otherwise pristine temple steps appear slightly soiled where he treads, a subtle visual contrast. The sense of formality and reverence that permeates the temple precinct is juxtaposed with the raw, exposed feeling of his bare feet. He is acutely aware of the contrast between the grandeur of the architecture and the vulnerability of his unshod state. The cold, smooth stone, the repetitive ascent, the quiet formality of the space, all serve as a continuous, subtle reminder of his missing sandals and the small, persistent discomforts that now defined his day, even in moments of quiet contemplation or civic duty. As the midday hours begin to wane, and Lucius continues his barefoot journey through the varied textures of the Roman city, the accumulated aches and irritations from his unshod state coalesce into a persistent, low-level discomfort. It is not a sharp, acute pain, but a pervasive, unyielding presence that settles deep into the soles of his feet and radiates subtly upwards. Imagine the feeling in the balls of his feet, a dull, continuous ache, a subtle tenderness from the constant impact with hard, uneven surfaces. His heels might feel bruised, absorbing the shock of countless steps on cobblestones and rough pavement. His toes, usually protected, might feel slightly raw, or chafed from rubbing against the grit and dust, or from the occasional stub against an unseen irregularity. The skin on his soles, typically hardened by sandals, now feels stretched, dry, and perhaps slightly abraded. He can feel the pervasive grit of dust and grime clinging to every crevice, a constant, irritating presence that cannot be easily shaken off. The subtle stickiness of dried mud from the market, the occasional sharp prickle of a tiny pebble, these sensations are now familiar, but no less annoying. The temperature variations have taken their toll. The initial chill of the morning, followed by the burning heat of the midday sun on the pavement, has left his feet feeling alternately numb and tender. The constant shift between cool shade and hot sun has created a subtle, pervasive fatigue in the muscles of his feet and ankles, a quiet weariness that makes each step feel a little heavier. The sounds of his bare feet on the various surfaces, the thud on cobblestones, the slap on marble, the squish in mud, have become a monotonous, repetitive soundtrack to his day, a constant reminder of his predicament. He is acutely aware of every step, every texture, every subtle change in the ground beneath him. This persistent discomfort is a quiet, unglamorous burden. It does not prevent him from performing his tasks, but it colors every action, every movement. It is a constant, nagging reminder of his missing sandals and the profound difference they make to his daily experience. The ease and protection they offered are now acutely missed, their absence a continuous, subtle form of suffering that underscores the mundane realities of a day in ancient Rome without proper footwear. The day stretches out, and the discomfort persists, a quiet, unwavering companion. As the afternoon hours begin to settle, Lucius finds a moment, a brief respite from his tasks and his journey through the city. He might sit on a low stone bench in a quiet corner of the Forum, or perhaps lean against the cool, rough wall of a building in a less trafficked alley. This is a moment of rest, but it offers only partial relief, for his feet remain stubbornly, persistently barefoot. Imagine the sensation as he finally takes the weight off his feet. The immediate, profound relief as the constant pressure from the hard, uneven ground is lifted. The dull ache in his soles, the tenderness in his heels, the slight stiffness in his toes, all these sensations lessen, but do not entirely disappear. The discomfort has become so pervasive that even in rest, a subtle memory of it lingers. He might gently rub the soles of his feet against each other, feeling the rough, gritty texture of the accumulated dust and grime. He can feel the tiny pebbles that have become embedded in the creases of his skin, a slight stickiness from dried market refuse. The skin on his soles feels warm, perhaps slightly swollen, and tender to the touch. The air around his feet, once exposed to the varied temperatures of the pavement, now feels uniformly cool, a subtle relief. The sounds around him are still the muffled hum of the city, the distant murmur of voices, the rhythmic clop-clop of sandals passing by. These sounds, usually unnoticed, now seem to emphasize his own unshod state, his vulnerability. He can hear the subtle rustle of his tunic as he shifts, the quiet sound of his own breathing. This brief rest is a necessary pause, a moment to gather his strength before continuing. But it is not a complete escape from his predicament. The absence of his sandals is still a palpable presence, a continuous physical reality. Even as his body rests, his feet remain exposed, vulnerable, and subtly uncomfortable. The thought of having to resume walking on the harsh Roman pavements weighs gently on his mind. The rest is temporary, and the problem persists, a quiet, unyielding companion throughout his day. During his brief respite, or as he resumes his slow, careful walk, a new thought begins to form in Lucius's mind, the possibility of acquiring new sandals. This is not a sudden, impulsive decision, but a practical consideration, born of necessity and the persistent discomfort of his barefoot state. Imagine the quiet contemplation. He considers the cost of new sandals, a small but significant expenditure. He thinks of the time it would take to visit a cobbler, to select a new pair, to wait for them to be fitted or made. This is an interruption to his day, an unforeseen detour from his planned tasks. He mentally pictures the various types of sandals available. The simple, sturdy solea, perhaps just a flat sole with basic straps, practical for daily wear. Or perhaps something a little more robust, a caliga or calceus, though those might be more formal or more expensive than he typically wears. He considers the different qualities of leather, the various styles of straps, the durability of the soles. His mind slowly, meticulously, weighs the options, the pros and cons of each. The thought of slipping his feet into a new pair of sandals brings a momentary, profound sense of relief. Imagine the feeling of the firm, protective sole beneath his feet, the gentle embrace of the leather straps, the cushioning from the harsh ground, the anticipation of walking without the constant ache, without the grit and grime, without the fear of sharp objects. This mental image of comfort is a powerful motivator. He also considers the practical implications of not getting new sandals. The continued discomfort, the risk of injury, the social awkwardness of being unshod in a city where footwear is the norm. The knowledge that his day, and perhaps many days to come, would be defined by this small, persistent problem. The decision is not yet made, but the thought of new sandals now occupies a quiet, persistent space in his mind, a potential solution to his mundane dilemma. The sounds of the city continue around him, but his internal focus is on this practical consideration, a quiet calculation of necessity and relief. Driven by the persistent discomfort and the practical necessity, Lucius eventually makes his way towards the cobbler's shop. This is not a grand, bustling establishment, but a small, unassuming workshop, often tucked away on a side street, its presence marked by the faint, distinctive smell of leather and the rhythmic sounds of craftsmanship. Imagine the exterior of the shop, a simple wooden counter, perhaps a display of a few finished sandals hanging, or arranged on a shelf. The air outside carries the faint, pungent aroma of tanned leather, a smell that is both strong and familiar. The sounds are distinct, the soft, rhythmic tap-tap-tap of a small hammer against a wooden last, the gentle scrape-scrape of a knife against leather, the subtle creak of a leather strap being pulled taut. Lucius steps inside, his bare feet now on a floor that might be packed earth, or perhaps rough, worn wooden planks covered in a fine layer of leather dust and small scraps. The smell of leather is much stronger here, a rich, earthy, pervasive aroma that fills the small, dim space. The light inside is often dim, relying on the open doorway and perhaps a single, smoky olive oil lamp, casting shifting shadows. He approaches the cobbler, a man often with calloused hands and a perpetually bent back from years of working over his bench. Imagine the quiet conversation, the low murmur of voices as Lucius explains his predicament. The cobbler might nod slowly, his gaze falling to Lucius's bare, dusty feet, a silent understanding passing between them. The cobbler would then begin the process of assessing Lucius's needs. Imagine the slow, deliberate movements as he picks up various samples of leather, feeling their texture, examining their thickness. The subtle rustle of the leather, the soft thud as a piece is laid on the bench. He might measure Lucius's foot with a simple strip of leather or a piece of string, a meticulous, unhurried process. The options would be discussed, the type of leather, the style of the straps, the thickness of the sole. This is not a quick purchase. It is a custom order, a careful selection. Lucius feels the rough texture of the sample leathers against his fingers, the subtle coolness of the new material. The sounds of the cobbler's work continue around him, a steady, rhythmic backdrop of craftsmanship. However, the brutal reality is that new sandals are not immediately available. They must be made, or perhaps selected from a limited stock and adjusted. This means a wait. Lucius cannot simply walk out with new footwear. The visit to the cobbler's shop, while offering the promise of future relief, does not solve his immediate, barefoot problem. He must leave, still unshod, with only the anticipation of comfort to come. The smell of leather lingers on his hands as he steps back out into the bustling street, his feet still bare. As the afternoon begins to draw to a close, and the sun starts its slow descent towards the western horizon, Lucius begins his long walk home. His feet, having endured hours of direct contact with the varied and often harsh surfaces of the Roman city, are now considerably more tired and tender than they were in the morning. Imagine the accumulated aches. The dull, persistent throb in the balls of his feet has intensified, becoming a more pronounced ache with each step. His heels might feel bruised and sore from the constant impact on hard stone. His toes, chafed by dust and grit, might feel raw and sensitive. The skin on his soles feels dry, stretched, and perhaps even slightly abraded in places, a continuous, low-level irritation. The sensation of the ground beneath his feet is now a continuous, undeniable burden. The cobblestones feel sharper, their irregularities more pronounced. The dust and grime cling more stubbornly to his sweaty soles, creating a pervasive grittiness that cannot be ignored. The areas of pavement that were scorching hot at midday are now merely warm, but the tenderness of his feet makes even this warmth feel uncomfortable. His pace is slower now, more deliberate, more cautious. He lifts his feet a little higher, places them a little more carefully, trying to minimize the impact and avoid any further discomfort. The rhythmic thud-thud of his bare feet on the stone is now accompanied by a subtle, almost imperceptible drag or shuffle as he tries to ease the pressure. His breathing might be a little heavier, a quiet sigh accompanying each step. The sounds of the city are beginning to change as evening approaches. The intense clamor of midday has lessened, replaced by a softer, more diffused hum. The calls of vendors are less frequent, the rumble of carts more distant. The rhythmic clop-clop of sandals and boots still surrounds him, a constant reminder of the footwear he lacks, but now it feels less like a threat and more like a monotonous backdrop to his own quiet suffering. The journey home, once a simple, unconscious act, has become a prolonged exercise in endurance. Each step is a conscious effort, a negotiation with the unyielding ground. The thought of finally reaching his home, of resting his weary, bare feet, is a powerful, quiet motivation that propels him forward through the fading light of the Roman afternoon. The long walk home is a testament to the persistent, unglamorous reality of his day without Sandals. As the sun dips lower towards the western horizon, casting long, dramatic shadows across the city, the evening chill begins to settle, bringing a new, distinct sensation to Lucius's bare feet. The warmth absorbed by the stone pavements throughout the day slowly begins to dissipate, and the air grows noticeably cooler, carrying the dampness of approaching dusk. Imagine the gradual onset of this chill. The stone beneath his feet, which was hot at midday and then merely warm in the late afternoon, now becomes distinctly cool. As he steps into shaded alleys or areas where the sun has already disappeared, the coolness is immediate and more intense, a sharp contrast to the lingering warmth in other spots. The sensation is one of pervasive coldness, slowly seeping into the soles of his feet and radiating upwards into his ankles. His toes, already tender from the day's walking, begin to feel stiff and slightly numb. The skin on his soles, dry and abraded from the day's exposure to dust and rough surfaces, now feels particularly sensitive to the cold, a raw, exposed feeling. He walks a little more quickly now, trying to generate some warmth through movement, but the chill is persistent. The rhythmic thud-thud of his bare feet on the cooling stone is accompanied by a subtle, almost involuntary shiver that runs through his body. He can feel the dampness of the evening dew beginning to form on the ground, a cold, wet touch that makes the chill even more pronounced and unpleasant. The sounds of the city are quieter now, as many citizens retreat to their homes. The murmur of voices is softer, the clatter of carts less frequent. The rhythmic clop-clop of sandals and boots, though still present, feels more distant, less immediate. The silence of the approaching night seems to amplify the sensation of the cold on his bare feet, making it a central, undeniable presence. This evening chill is a final, persistent reminder of his predicament. The comfort and protection that Sandals would have offered from the cooling ground are now acutely missed. The day, which began with the cool earth, now ends with a pervasive coldness, a continuous cycle of discomfort. The evening chill on his bare skin is a physical manifestation of his missing sandals, a final, unglamorous challenge that underscores the full extent of his day's quiet ordeal. Finally, as the last vestiges of twilight fade from the sky, Lucius reaches his home. He pushes open the heavy wooden door, its familiar creak a welcome sound, and steps inside. The immediate sensation is one of profound, though partial, relief. The cool, rough surfaces of the city streets are left behind, replaced by the familiar, packed earth floor of his dwelling. Imagine the feeling as his bare feet meet the indoor earth. It is still cool, but a different kind of cool, a stable, less abrasive coolness than the outdoor stone. The grit and sharp edges of the pavement are gone, replaced by the smoother, softer texture of the indoor floor. The immediate, intense pressure on his soles is lifted, and the dull ache in his feet lessens slightly, though it does not entirely disappear. He walks slowly towards the hearth, drawn by the faint, comforting glow of the banked embers from the morning. The air inside is still, warmer than the outside evening chill, and carries the familiar sense of wood smoke, dried herbs, and stored provisions. This is a sanctuary, a place of respite from the elements. He settles onto his low wooden stool near the hearth, carefully extending his tired feet towards the residual warmth. The gentle heat radiating from the embers is a profound comfort, slowly, subtly, beginning to thaw the chill that has settled deep into his soles. He can feel the warmth spreading, a slow, soothing sensation that brings a quiet sigh of relief. The sounds of the home are minimal. The soft crackle of a dying ember, the gentle rustle of his tunic as he shifts, his own slow, deep breathing. The silence of the interior is a stark contrast to the fading sounds of the city outside. He is home, safe from the cold, the crowds, and the harsh pavements. Yet, even in this moment of relief, the absence of his sandals is still a quiet, persistent reality. His feet, though resting, are still bare, still tender, still a physical manifestation of the day's unexpected challenge. The comfort of being indoors is profound, but the problem of his missing footwear, though temporarily less pressing, has not been resolved. The day has been defined by their absence, and even now, in the quiet of his home, that absence lingers. As the evening deepens, and the warmth from the hearth becomes the primary comfort, Lucius prepares for his evening meal, still profoundly barefoot. The simple act of eating becomes another quiet moment where the absence of his sandals and the day's physical toll subtly asserts itself. Imagine the familiar routine, the thick, hot porridge or stew, carefully ladled into a clay bowl. The aroma of the cooked meal fills the small room, warm and inviting, mingling with the pervasive scent of wood smoke. He sits on his low wooden stool near the hearth, his bare feet resting on the cool, packed earth floor, or perhaps extended towards the embers for warmth. He eats slowly, deliberately, savoring each mouthful of the simple, nourishing food. The warmth of the meal spreads through his body, a comforting heat that helps to counteract the lingering chill in his feet. The sounds are minimal, the soft scrape of a wooden spoon against the clay bowl, the rhythmic chew-chew of his mouth, the quiet swallows. As he eats, he is subtly aware of his feet. The dull ache, though lessened by rest and warmth, still persists a low, continuous throb. He might occasionally shift his weight, or subtly rub one foot against the other, feeling the rough, gritty texture of the accumulated dust and grime that still clings to his soles. The skin on his feet feels dry and tender, a constant reminder of the day's exposure. The familiar comfort of his home, the warmth of the fire, the nourishment of his meal, all these contribute to a sense of peace. But the physical reality of his bare feet, the persistent discomfort, is a quiet counterpoint. It is not a major distraction, but a continuous underlying sensation that underscores the unusual nature of his day. The evening meal, usually a time of simple, uncomplicated contentment, is now subtly marked by the day's unique challenge. His bare feet, usually shod and forgotten, are now a constant physical presence in his awareness. The simple act of eating becomes another quiet moment where the mundane loss of his sandals continues to subtly shape his experience, a persistent, unglamorous reality that lingers even in the comfort of his own home. As the long Roman night deepens and the embers in the hearth slowly fade to a soft, reddish glow, Lucius begins the final preparations for bed, still profoundly unshod. This ritual of winding down for sleep is now subtly altered by the day's unique experience. Imagine the cool, still air in the room, the warmth from the fire now primarily radiating from the banked embers. The only light comes from this soft glow, casting long, shifting shadows that dance gently on the walls. He moves slowly, deliberately, his bare feet making soft, almost imperceptible thuds on the packed earth floor. His first act is to wash his feet. He pours a small amount of cool, fresh water from a stored amphora into a basin. He dips his feet into the water, feeling the immediate, invigorating shock of the chill. He gently rubs his soles with his hands, feeling the accumulated dust, the grit, the traces of grime from the day's journey. The water quickly becomes cloudy with the dirt. He feels the small, sharp pricks of tiny embedded pebbles, the slight tenderness of chafed skin. The sounds are minimal, the soft splash of water, the gentle rubbing of skin, the quiet drip-drip as he lifts his feet from the basin. He dries his feet meticulously with a rough linen cloth, feeling its coarse texture against his now clean, but still tender skin. The sensation of clean feet, though still bare, is a small, profound comfort after the day's exposure. He can feel the relief as the grit is removed, but the underlying aches and tenderness remain, a persistent memory of the day's ordeal. He then moves to his cot, smoothing out his woolen blanket, fluffing the rough fabric. The firm, familiar surface of his bed awaits him. He sits on the edge, his bare feet now resting on the cool, clean earth. The silence of the room is profound, broken only by his own slow breathing and the soft crackle of the dying embers. The preparation for bed is a slow, methodical unwinding, a final act of cleansing and readiness for rest. His feet, having borne the brunt of the day's unexpected challenge, are now clean, but still exposed, still reminding him of the absence of his sandals. The comfort of his bed is imminent, but the physical reality of being unshod, even at this final moment of the day, is a quiet, persistent presence. As Lucius lies down on his cot, pulling the rough woolen blanket up to his chin, he settles into the familiar contours of his bed. The warmth of the blanket, the softness of the straw mattress beneath him, offer a profound comfort after the day's physical exertion and the continuous discomfort of his bare feet. His breathing deepens, becoming slow and even, a steady rhythm of peace. In this moment of quiet stillness, as his body begins to surrender to sleep, the absence of his sandals becomes a final, quiet realization, a subtle, lingering thought that drifts through his mind. He has spent the entire day without them, navigating the rough, hot, dirty, and cold surfaces of Rome. He has felt every pebble, every crack, every patch of mud. He has endured the constant vigilance against being stepped on, the subtle discomfort, the pervasive grime. He can no longer feel the distinct aches in his feet. They are slowly dissolving into the general pleasant heaviness of his body as sleep approaches. But the memory of the sensations lingers. The sharp jab of a stone, the burning heat of the midday pavement, the cold dampness of the evening ground, the gritty feel of dust. These memories are not painful, but rather a quiet, unglamorous testament to the day's unexpected challenge. There is no dramatic resolution to the problem of the missing sandals in this moment. They are simply gone, He has made arrangements for new ones, a practical solution for tomorrow or the day after. But for this day, the day that is now ending, he lived it entirely without them. The experience has been one of subtle, persistent discomfort, of continuous awareness of his feet, of a minor, yet pervasive, disruption to his routine. The silence of the night envelops him fully, completely. The soft glow of the embers fades to nothing, plunging the room into absolute darkness. He is utterly at peace, his body heavy, his mind clear. The absence of his sandals, the small, mundane problem that defined his day, now fades into the quiet void of sleep. It is a final, unglamorous truth of his ordinary Roman life, a quiet acceptance of the small, unexpected brutalities of existence. He is truly, perfectly asleep. And so we bring our quiet, unhurried exploration of a day in the life of a Roman who just lost his sandals to a close. We have journeyed through the subtle chill of dawn, the unexpected discovery of absence, the meticulous search, and the long, unshod traverse of the Roman city. We have lingered on the monotonous details, the rough textures, the subtle discomforts, and the pervasive realities of a day lived without the simple protection of footwear. We have felt the cool, hard earth of the home, the sharp edges of the cobblestones, the gritty dust and sticky grime of the streets, the burning heat of the midday pavement, and the creeping chill of the evening ground. We have heard the rhythmic thud of bare feet, the clop-clop of shod citizens, and the general hum of the ancient city. We have smelled the wood smoke, the dust, the faint unpleasantness of urban refuse, and the clean scent of water. This was a day defined not by grand triumphs or historical events, but by a quiet, mundane challenge. It was a continuous, subtle battle against discomfort, inconvenience, and the unyielding nature of the ancient world. Survival, even in its smallest forms, was a daily art, requiring adaptability and a profound, unglamorous resilience. Our Roman citizen endured by embracing the reality of his situation, by adapting his movements, by seeking temporary relief, and by planning for a practical solution. His day was a testament to human fortitude, to the ability to persevere through minor, yet persistent difficulties, and to find a quiet acceptance in the face of unexpected disruption. The missing sandals transformed an ordinary day into a continuous, subtle test of endurance, a profound reminder of the small things that shape daily life. Let the detailed, slow accounts of his quiet, unshod struggle and unwavering dedication to simply navigating his day settle gently, steadily into your mind. Allow the profound stillness of his Roman world, the monotonous rhythms of his discomfort and perseverance, to wash over you, calming your thoughts and soothing your spirit. May the quiet resilience of this ordinary Roman and the timeless, cyclical peace of his simple, unglamorous day guide you now into a deep, undisturbed, and utterly peaceful sleep. Rest well, weary traveler, and may your dreams be filled with tranquility and the quiet strength of those who simply endured.